Hi, this is Dr. Susan Jaleo from the Biz Savvy Therapist, and this week for our book review, I'm going to review Seth Godin's book, LinchPin, and this was published in 2010 to some fanfare. If you don't know of Seth Godin, he has a great blog. I think it's called thisissethsblog.com, but Google Seth Godin, it'll come up. He's written a lot of books about marketing. He's written a book called The Purple Cow, The Dip. He's written the book Tribes, which is another book that I'll probably review in a couple weeks. But Linchpin was really interesting because in this book he talks a lot about being what he calls indispensable. I think it says, "Are you indispensable?" is his subtitle. And really what he's advocating in this book is that in the new economy, with new jobs and a new evolution of how we make our money at work, that the people who really stand out and make themselves indispensable and are creative and do what he calls their art. And he doesn't mean that art in terms of artistic. He means doing your best work, or doing bringing to the world what really is essentially the core of who you are, what your gifts are. Doing your art is what makes you indispensable, which is what is going to make you very attractive to either employers or to clients or customers that want to work with you. And so he's really encouraging us to be our true selves and to be our unique true selves and not try to blend in with the crowd. And he talks about that in context because in the early 1900s, during sort of when industry was really building up in the United States, it really was more important to blend in, to work on a factory floor and do things in a certain order, the way someone in charge told you to do your work, and that was the way that you kept your job. Now we don't have that kind of workforce. We all have to be unique and bring our art to the world to be successful. And so he talks about that, and then he talks about what he calls the lizard brain, which of course I love because I'm a psychologist and I study the brain. But he talks about how sort of the more primitive parts of our brain, like the amygdala, really sort of tell us, don't stand out, don't be unique. That's dangerous, like these primitive parts of our brain that, way back in prehistoric times, if you stood out, you would sort of be a quick dinner for something bigger or larger than you because you didn't blend in, you didn't have camouflage, you weren't able to hide. But now we can't hide, but unfortunately that primitive part of our brain is still wired for us to want to really blend in. And so he talks a lot about overcoming the lizard brain and sort of putting it to sleep so that we can't, it doesn't stop functioning, but it's not as sort of important in terms of when we start to think about being unique and standing out, that we're not scared to be our true selves. And so I think this is really important for those of us in healthcare because our training is very long and actually very hierarchical. So we were really trained to do what our professors and our mentors and our supervisors all basically told us to do. And so standing out as a healthcare provider is not something that we're trained to do. We're trained to fit in. And for better or worse, again, the economy is changing, the reality of healthcare is changing, and those of us that really step up and are unique in some ways, I think we'll have an easier time of it, making a really not just successful, but I think a rewarding career in healthcare. I think all of us can be successful if our mindset is just to do what sort of the culture sort of tells us to do, but a lot of us aren't happy in that environment, and so we want something more, and we want to be able to be more of our true self. So I highly recommend reading Seth Godin's LinchPin. This has been Dr. Susan Jaleo of the Biz Savvy Therapist.